Welcome to Experimental Encounters, where we share our journey towards less friction and more freedom. We explore the sweet spot between ancient wisdom, productivity, psychology, and technology. In this episode, I will be talking about getting things done in Logseq. We'll also talk through our latest encounters and share our tips for books and videos you should consider. We are your hosts, Thorbjørn and Kenneth. Let the experimentation begin. Thorbjørn, what have you been up to lately?
Yeah, lately for my my work, there has been some changes which demanded that I had to hand over some of my projects. And my encounter is just how easy it is for me to hand off projects and next actions and all the information regarding things that are ongoing, how easy it is to just hand it over to somebody else when it's already in my system. And it has been very frictionless because I had it all written down in advance, and that is how I usually work. That was a huge relief to do that, and it has been a fun experience to hand it off. I'm not done handing it off yet, but I'm just preparing all the files, and it has been an easy journey so far. One thing I don't like about Outlook is that in order for you to export a series of mails inside a folder, I have to export it as a PST file in order to get all the attachments with me inside the conversations. Because if I just pull a conversation over to an MSG file in SharePoint, it will not pull out the attachments that is inside the conversation, and that is a kind of a friction. It's a big friction for the people who has to use it, because you have to download the PST file and import it manually into Outlook.
Yeah.
So that part I was not so happy about, but at least the data is there and it is exported. So it will be accessible for the other people when they need it.
Yeah. Yes, that last part is part of the process I haven't even thought about, because I use Outlook for web, since that's the way Microsoft says they will be moving. So I'm just okay. I just add that anyways, and then it's much easier to add links to the relevant email. But of course, sharing my projects with my links to my emails would not work, because they wouldn't have the same access as me, unless we ask the IT team to do some magic. But I don't even know if they could.
No, but the way I did it was, or with the way I work in Outlook, is for every project that has email correspondence, there is a folder with the reference. All my conversations go there when I have pulled out all the next actions. So it's pure reference.
Yeah.
And in order for me to make the process easier of exporting, I made a small Streamdeck button, because there's a lot of clicks, but you can do it with hotkeys. You can export it with hotkeys. So that made the process a lot faster, because you have to go through different menus and windows to choose how to export and all that.
Yeah.
So from that on, it was easy.
Yeah. So you repeated that process for each project you had.
For each folder, I just pushed the button, and where the sequence ended, where I chose the folder to export.
Yeah.
And then there was two clicks or something like that, and then it was out in a PST file.
Very nice. I just have to take a short break, because I heard something break in the kitchen, I think.
So, okay.
Just give it a
we'll
second.
be back soon.
My son just stood there very innocent. What happened? Nothing. So nothing was broken, at least. So I'm happy.
So that was my latest encounter, and it was a good one. Yeah.
Yes. Very nice. Yeah, I have, of course, I can use the same procedure as you have done, so I can just open regular Outlook, because it syncs between the web version and so on. Yeah, that's very nice. I'm preparing for confirmation for my oldest son, and there's of course lots to do, and trying to do. It's a pretty complicated project with many moving parts, and trying to work with my wife, which usually prefers to keep things in her head, has proven to be very hard in the past. But now it's actually getting quite easy. So she's always had a very organized mind, much better than me. So she hasn't really felt the need for GTD. But now she's finally come around to, okay, it's maybe good to have different lists for different contexts. And like we have the shopping lists, and we have all the arrangements that has to be moved from one place to another, and who will sit in the different cars, and all those things. Since I think there's like there was a marathon in Hamburg last weekend, so all the streets are closed. And next weekend, when the confirmation is, there's also something happening in Hamburg, so all the streets will be closed. So we have to go with as few cars as possible and try to make it work somehow, since the ceremony is in one of the very nice concert halls in Hamburg.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's been very nice to work with her on these things. Like, okay, what's our ideal outcome? What do you want to happen? And it's, I don't know, maybe it's me, or maybe she's just absorbed it through osmosis or something. So finally, nice. It feels like I'm doing GTD at home with my wife. So it's a new feeling for me. It's very nice. So. And it's been on me, so because she doesn't really need to plan things, because she can just keep everything in her head. I always joke that the magic number is ±7, right? So I'm at max, I'm at 5, right? Because I'm there, and she's at minimum a 9, so she can just keep things in her head. And sometimes it falls through the cracks, because there is limited space in the brain, no matter how many things you can remember at the same time. So this is how I have found how to practice GTD most effectively in Logseq. So there's quite a few steps, and if you have time, I can show how it looks in my system too.
Yeah.
But here are like the principles of it. I'll just go through it by the different stages of GTD. So what I do is if I'm not in Logseq, I use a small application I have scripted myself in Autohotkey, which is called LogseqQuickadd. And if I go here, and I can just... So now I just open a notepad, and I can write, for instance. So here's the thought I have. I'm in a different application. I write something, and I think this should really be in Logseq. So I just hit a hotkey, and this box, it popped up on another screen, but it pops up here. And what happens is that what I have on my clipboard will get automatically added to whatever I write here. So if I copy this and trigger the hotkey, which again, that it adds my clipboard to my, and then I can say check. So click enter there, it just goes to my daily journal page and adds it at the bottom. So it's very, very easy. It doesn't add any context or anything. It just dumps it into my journal page, and then I have to process it later. So that's the first part here, because whenever I'm in an email or in PowerPoint or Excel or something, I find a cell and this doesn't look right. I can just click Control-C for copying it on my clipboard, and Control-Shift-L to add it to Logseq, and then it's in Logseq.
So this script could you set it up for other applications, or is it an integration in Logseq? Is that a plugin, or how does it work?
No, this could work in Obsidian as well, since it uses a Windows command which is called append to file. So you can actually just append a new line to any markdown or text file or CSV file.
That is so strong. Wow. I have to test that out.
Yeah. So I can share it with you. So I have even made like a small icon for it and everything.
Yeah,
so
because I have a dedicated inbox file which I can add things to within Obsidian, but I don't use it outside.
Yeah. So here's my tray menu in Windows, and I have made this small icon, and it says just click Shift Control L, and then you add your clipboard as a task to Logseq. So, but you could actually don't have to add the to do in front of it. You could modify it in many ways.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Wow.
So this saves me so much time, because sometimes I have maybe not even opened Logseq, and it takes maybe 5 seconds to open, and those are the 5 crucial seconds to get out of the flow. So just hitting the shortcut right and just OK or enter, and then it just disappears. Then I can just continue without thinking more about it. So
yeah,
it's a huge part of my workflow.
Very elegant.
And then I always have one screen for Logseq, and I log almost everything in my daily journal, and this is really has many advantages for me, at least, and it automatically dates all my entries. So because in Logseq it's like wherever you add a line or an entry in Logseq, it inherits the parent. So when the biggest parent or a grandparent or whatever you want to call it, it's always the page name, and the page name is always the journal name, right? So it always gets that day's date automatically just by being a part of that page. It gets added to that date, and I find this very useful. So that means it automatically makes a journal for all my activities, which we talked about before the call. Now is could be a good thing, but it also could be a bad thing if you want to export everything, because then you're exporting both your personal and private stuff, or like your work and private stuff, because of course I don't keep 2 different journals. So I have to think a little about that. Maybe I could add like a tag or something to exclude all private stuff. So
yeah,
I have to think of that. And this also primes my brain to always look at my system, because Logseq is it's my hub for everything else. So I have even added links to other applications. So I know that since it always automatically starts, I can just launch things even from Logseq. And that makes it a very integral part of my system. So I can see all my tasks very easily, because it shows at all my scheduled and overdue and backlogs tasks are always at the bottom of the page. So I can see if there's some tasks that should be done today, then it will be at the top of the bottom of my journals page. And then there's the overdue tasks, and then there's all the tasks without any dates, really. Whenever I scroll down to my page, I'll always be reminded of there are more things to do, so I don't forget, and I just wander off and there's nothing to do today, because there's always lots to do.
How are you feeling about that all the overdue are at the bottom of the page and not at the top?
Yeah, actually considered it if I want it at the top, but yeah, so far I haven't moved it. I have the overdue first, and then I have the scheduled, and then the backlog. But maybe I should just put it at the top, actually. So
is that a setting or something?
Yeah, you can add, like in Logseq, you can say that this is a template, and every day when you add, when Logseq at midnight adds today's or new day's page automatically, and then you can say, okay, whenever that happens, use this template and insert it at the top of the journals page, so you always get the same stuff there. And I think it's automatically is at the bottom, you get those 3 different categories, like scheduled, overdue, and backlog. But you can turn it off if you don't want to be bothered with it. So yeah. So the only exception to writing things is if I talk to someone or I'm presenting like I'm doing now, then I don't even though I'm discussing things I find interesting, I would normally log into Logseq. I don't, except when I come over a next action, then I always capture it. And then I usually use my LogseqQuickadd application because it's very fast to add it. And it's by default, it's made to pop up on the screen that I'm not sharing. So that's why it's always popping up off screen when I'm using it now, when I have to drag it over.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I also link emails to the projects or to the tasks. So what I do is I make hierarchy here. So whenever I come to this in the next part in the clarify stage. So what I do, I capture a task and then I ask myself, is this the very next action? And if it is, then I write that down. I try not to, sometimes when I capture it, I just write down whatever comes to mind. But when I'm looking at it and trying to clarify it and add context and so on, I'm asking, is this really the next action, or is there something else first that needs to happen? And then I write that down. And if there's more to be done, I say, okay, if yes, then I add a parent to my next action. So I just jump on up, add a parent, which is the project name. And I try to make the names really short. Before I had like really long, elaborate names, like perfectly set up this and that.
So the project is just a block, and then your next action is just a child of that block?
No, I make it a page. So I make it a separate page. So
the one project is one page.
Yeah. Yeah. But I make the next action, I make it a sub or like a child of that. It's a reference to a page, but that's a block, right? So under that block, which is referencing the page, I add the task. So in that way, I automatically get added a date to the to-do, so I can see how long it is since I did something with this task.
Yeah.
So I try to show this afterwards too. So I'm trying to always make it very short with the project names. So I should really understand what it is by the first two words. And the next words are just for making it again by when or perfectly doing it, or yeah, how to define success really. So for example, onboard client X by April's end, for instance, could be, so these two are the main words that makes me understand what I'm doing. And the last part is just, okay, what does success look like in a way?
Yeah.
Some of the criteria.
One question, do you have an overview somewhere of all your projects where they are just, you can see a list of them?
Yes.
Because for your example there, if I had a lot of projects that started with the word onboard, like similar projects, I would have to look for the right client. So what I have done in my project lists is that I have taken the keyword, the one keyword, and put that in the first place.
Yeah.
And then the type of project afterwards. So in my example, it would be client X onboarded by April 10th, because client X will be the one I will be looking for when I'm scrolling down the list. I don't know if you have.
I actually do that. I don't know why I wrote the other way around in the example, but I also in Logseq there's a very cool feature, I think, which I think will be very appealing to you, which is called namespaces, which I think is a bad name for it, but namespaces is that if I add the name project and then a slash and then on client X onboard by April 10th, then I automatically get like a folder structure of all pages that start with project.
Yeah.
And I've used this to my advantage. So whenever I add a project, I have a hotkey for adding, or like a hot string for adding different kinds of projects. Yeah. And then it automatically becomes an active project or canceled project or a done project or someday maybe.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm going to show you afterwards. You can see how it works there. Yeah. So that's what I do. I add it below, and I also, let's see if that comes up here when I organize. Yes. So whenever in Logseq, if you click Control Enter, it automatically adds to do at the front of the task or block you're in. So that makes it a next action in my system. You could choose to not use it this way, but I find the to-do system in Logseq quite good. And what I have done is I made a hotkey that not only makes it into a project or like a next action, but it also adds the context. So when I click Alt Enter, it adds to do at the start of the line, and then it adds a context attribute to the line. And then I just have to choose which context this belongs to. So at office or on the computer or
so the attribute is that something with 2 colons or
yes,
what is it?
Yes, that's the one where you add 2 colons. So it's the attribute is called context, and then I just choose among the attributes for that context.
Okay, so is there a menu you click on one, or do you just write your context?
I just click on it and then I get up to automatically get the list of,
is that an Autohotkey thing to?
No, that's part of Logseq that you get the different attributes. So they worked quite much with
so you have some predefined values you can choose between.
Yeah, you actually just get the values that you have used before in the list.
Okay, yeah. It's like an autocomplete suggestion menu. Okay.
Correct. Yes. That's the way it works. It also makes defining projects quite easy because when I've added the link to a page, it's in Logseq, it's just like in Obsidian. Whenever you add a link to a page, it also creates that page, right?
Yeah.
So what I do then, I shift click on the link to the page, and then it opens in the sidebar.
Yeah.
And when I have it open in the sidebar, I can, with a slash command, just write temp, and then I get all of my templates, and then I just choose project, and then it adds the different lines that I usually use in different projects.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever I add a project, I try to define it at once, just add it anyways. And if I don't do it, I usually do it in the next weekly review. But in the next weekly review, I see, okay, there is a project without really being defined. I have, of course, tried to define it a little in the project name, but that's often so short that it's not that meaningful for maybe some of the goals of the project.
Yeah.
So that's what I mean by defining projects is easy, because I add the name, and by clicking on it straight afterwards, I can see the empty page. I just add the template for the project, and then everything is easy because I have already, since I have a child block that is a task, then it's also automatically shows up as this project has 1 task, right? So it's very easy to see, that all the projects have a next action. Yes, so that was the shift click. Yes, and reflecting is also very easy, I feel. I use queries. Let's see, I think maybe I haven't added all the things I wanted here. But you can add queries that just where you say, okay, if there are more tasks, because sometimes I'm not quite sure what the next action is. And if it's more than just the 2 I think of at first, and no, there's even more here, then I start just adding the tasks in a hierarchy. Mm-hmm. Because I understand that somewhere I'm going to find like the task that has to be done next. And so I have added a query that says, okay, if there's any parent task, this just ignore it, just show the next action. So it will ignore all the other tasks that are above it in the hierarchy until I cross it off as done, and then it will just automatically jump to the next one. So that's just by using the queries function in Logseq.
Yeah,
so I find that also very nice, really.
So the child action is the one you have to do first, right?
Yeah.
And then the subsequent actions are parents to that.
Yeah, and then it just jumps upwards in the tree. And,
yeah.
And also you can have called queries that shows all pages which are projects without a to-do linked to it. So if I have a project that doesn't have any to-dos, then I have a separate list of those projects. So I can very easily see, okay, I have maybe half my projects now don't have any to-dos or next actions. Okay, then I have to, and if I have to have a short weekly review, then those are the ones I have to focus on because the others have a next action.
Yeah. Okay.
But if I have a long one, I'll go through all the projects anyway because I may have done a next action and just not crossed it off in Logseq, which happens a lot.
Yeah.
So usually I go through everything anyways, but it's very nice to be able to just see, okay, I have 5 or 10 projects here without any next actions, then I have to look at that because it won't move by itself. So, yeah. Yeah, and I also have a query showing all next actions without the context because sometimes if I add with my LogseqQuickadd, for instance, and there's so much happening and it just disappears at the top, then maybe I forget to add a context, and then I can just filter it out and say, okay, here are the 5 tasks without context here.
Yeah. Do you write down like future actions in a project or ideas for future actions? Because on my project page, I will have a section for like future actions, and I will make them as tasks, but I will not put any context on it because it's not active yet.
Yeah. Yeah, I just added the context because if it's something that's dependent on something else, then I just add it in a hierarchy and then I automatically get it to auto escalate or auto move on to the next. If it's more, okay, when I've done this, then reevaluate and think about what's the best next step forward, then I just add that to the project, not as a action really, but more as a note to myself. So it depends a little, but if I've already been thinking about what's the best way to do this and what are all the moving pieces, and then I often end up with a hierarchy of things to do.
Okay.
And not often, but maybe 1 in 10 projects is so complicated that I might as well utilize all the thinking effort I've already done once instead of just saying, no, I'll just throw away that and just write down the next action, because then I would lose a lot of insight really. I think most projects just need to define the one next action, so 90% of the time, I think. Yes, and it also shows automatically a list of all projects and their state because of the namespace feature, and I feel that is very nice. So if they're active or someday awaiting or done or cancelled, really shows everything. So engage. So the engage part is pretty easy because, as you heard already, it's just being on my journals page and going in the different contexts depending on where I am.
So do you have, there's like links for the different contexts, right?
Yeah.
You just click a context and it will jump to that place. Yeah. Or you will jump to all the actions with that context.
Yes. In my daily hot list, this is where I add this is my template that gets added to every page. So it's, when I get in here, it's usually expanded, so I can see, okay, check calendar, check due, and remind list. So I can click here and go to my remind list. And like, I'm trying to make 2-minute habits of just doing like very small things because it usually triggers me to do more exercise. So the habits is I usually just add one, this is what I want to focus on this month. So I usually change this. And then the journal, I just add the different things I encounter during the day. And here's my project structure. So it's, if you take this one, it's PR is a project, A is for active, P is for private, and then comes the name of the project. If it's more area of focus, I add an 8 to it just to get it at the top. So it's more like a never-ending project. So infinity. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's because all the numbers are automatically filtered to the top of the list. So.
Yeah.
And if I change from A to X, which is my letter for completed, because it looks like a check mark, And also it makes the filtering, it filters it down to the bottom of the list of all projects. If I had used D, then it would be between my work and my private, and so it's.
So the slashes, they work as a tree structure as well.
Yes. So if I go into this, because this is a link to a page, right? So if I go here, I get to this page.
Yeah.
And here you can see I've added like a different GTD template for me, and I can see all my linked references. So all the days I've added to this project, I can see here. So there's 2 different days I've added to it. So one last year and one today.
Yeah.
And if I want to see, here you can see the structure. So if I go to PR, go to this P1, which is my personal projects. I minimize this. Here you can see a list of all my projects, private projects. And if I want to see all my completed, I would have to go to PRC and P. Then I would see all my completed private projects. So I think it's just because I want the status of the project is more important for me than if it's a private or work project. But you could, of course, change them around. Yeah. So that's how I can see all my projects. And then under each, I have some favorites here. So under the to-do page, I have different queries that filter, show me any project without any next actions, as I talked about. Show me any tasks or next actions which is just the very next action, not one of the next actions. Yeah. And so I can jump to my work meeting or my work projects and my private projects, or just my project overview here, which I won't click on now because then you can see all my work projects. Yeah, I feel it works well for me. It's, as I said, if I click Control L here, you can see it's already added one time, but I could like this and click OK, and it takes literally a few seconds and it gets added here with today's date even. This is not really necessary since it's already getting added to this page, but before I added this to my inbox page, and so I wanted to add the date instead. Yeah, so that's what I do. So if I make a test like this, and I want to make this task or next action, I click Alt Enter. And so it makes it a to-do. It adds a context attribute and a report to attribute. So if I don't need it, I just delete this part. And I just add the different things I need. So it's very easy to get the context to each next action. Yeah.
And if you click the phone, it will get you to the.
I'll get all the phone. I usually don't use the phone, as you can see, but sometimes usually because my phone activity or my phone context is usually pretty easy to empty, because I just go into my phone, I see, and I just call people. It's my calls list, right? So whenever I sit in the car or want to take some phone calls, then I just
So I have two questions. Do you use any plugins for making this work, or is it just vanilla Logseq?
This is mostly vanilla Logseq. So what I add is the focus toolbar, which removes things automatically on the side. And I also use this one, the hashtag, or and it shows what you search for last. So if you search for @, which is all my context, then that's what gets filtered through. So you can see it's pretty much PC is my most used context, shopping, hardware, yeah, and so on. Yeah, that's those are the plugins I use really. I use plugins for search and replace. Last time I tried it, it didn't work, so I just did it in the text files instead. And I also have different. I have a power tags plugin which really works with the context. So whenever you add, if I added a special hashtag here, it will automatically add different attributes to the block. So I haven't tried it out yet. I just installed it the other day. So it seems very nice because if you add like slash NA for next action or like hashtag NA for next action, the power tags plugin will add like context, who to reply to, which projects it's added to. You could make yours like a template in a way.
Yeah. So next question, how or do you integrate your Streamdeck into your workflow, or is that a future thing?
No, I use it. So if I stand here, I can use my Streamdeck to add schedule time. So if this is supposed to be done today, I can do this, or I can say if I'm waiting for and open my Streamdeck. So this is my button for waiting for. So if I click this, it changes from to do to waiting. Yeah, it didn't work really. I'm not using this one that much, so waiting.
Yeah.
I also let's see what other things. Yeah, adding videos and adding companies, adding people. So I also, when I add a person, I do like this, and then I get a long list of all the people I want to talk to. So then I get you.
Yeah.
And the same with really companies. It's a $sign and a slash. This means that with the namespace, I can just click on the @ and that's a page. And under that page, you can see all the people that I know.
Yeah. So it's in a way, it's a kind of a tag, or
it's sort of a tag or a folder, or So it's.
But you can use any symbol you like with these.
Yeah, some symbols are not that easy to use. So
the slash itself, I guess.
Yeah. But the slash gets translated to 3 underline or underscores. So in the text file, it is translated to 3 underscores.
Okay.
So my projects looks like PR 3 underscores, A 3 underscores, P 3 underscores, and then the name of the file. Yeah. So that makes it also very easy if I ever needed to leave Logseq for some reason, or I wanted to find something else. Maybe I would want to go back to Obsidian, for instance. I could very easily import this into that other system, really. So yeah, and that's why we both use Obsidian and other Markdown editors, is because we want the information to be free. So there is in Logseq there is a feature called copy block reference. And I never use this because this is impossible for a human to read.
Yeah.
So I have added a request that says, okay, but you should add name of the page at least to this reference number, like this. For me, because then I would know where to look for this reference.
Yeah, exactly.
So I don't mind that, okay, this may be broken, but ideally I would like it to be the name of the page and then the first few words of that line, maybe even the number of the line, because you can automatically change it afterwards. But I'm thinking name of the page and maybe the first X amount of characters would be a much better system for me because it makes it human readable. I think this actually breaks with the principles that Logseq has defined for themselves, being it's local first and open source, and being your data is your data. This makes my data not my data. So that's why I never use it.
Yeah, and the other thing to consider in Logseq is also that you actually don't use the folder structure like in the file system. You use these slashes to make different kind of structures inside.
Yes.
But the files themselves, they lay flat out on in one folder or something like that.
Yeah, so the only exception is that all the journals pages are in one folder and all the other pages are in another folder.
Yeah,
So that's really only, you don't use folders, but you can use namespaces, as they call it.
Yeah.
And for me, that works. It makes it also very easy. If I would want to move this to Obsidian, I could say, okay, use the namespaces hierarchy to make folders and put the file in the relevant folder. So it will be very easy for me to move from one system to another. Yeah. Yes, and you can see my overdue backlog and schedule.
Yeah.
In the bottom here. So then there's the next day really. So I have 5 overdue and I have 87 backlog and nothing. I have 2, which is today.
Nice.
Yes, that's my system. So
yeah,
I hope it helps people to. If it doesn't help them to start with Logseq, it at least maybe helps them to think about how this system could look. For many people, this system will probably be way overkill because it uses quite a few advanced features. But when you're a nerd like us,
yeah, it's like going into a candy store.
Yeah, but I have done it like this too, right? So just having, and it's basically the same thing. It's a little more manual, going back and forth between stuff, but you're basically doing the same thing. And I would recommend. Often I would recommend to start like this on paper, like we have had a video on already.
Yeah.
And then choose a system digitally, because then you are aware of all the advantages of having it in a digital format and being able to extract things out of your system. So as I've talked about before, I have used Microsoft To Do for a while. I just wanted to see how the experience is. There are some very nice things about it, but for me, it's a little slow. That's one thing, even though it's a very simple application.
Yeah.
And tagging works. You can make a tag and then you click on it and you can see all the things that you have tagged with that tag. But the problem is that if you change the tag, you only change that one place. While as in Logseq, when you change a name of the page or a tag, it changes everywhere. And that's a real beauty of both Logseq and Obsidian, is that, yes, there's like this interlinking and that it goes both ways. So when I create a tag, I'm tagging that page and I can go to that page. It also makes a tag the other way. So it's saying at the bottom of the page, it says, okay, on today's date, you tagged this page the other way. And this is so much like my brain works, and I think most people's brains work. I think it's actually one of the reasons why many people find computers very confusing, because it doesn't work like our brain works, and then it's harder to understand.
And we want the systems to mold into our brains or into our personalities, instead of we having to fit into a system. We need the system to be flexible enough for it to wrap around our heads perfectly and make a perfect fit. It's been a very interesting journey, Kenneth. I'm looking forward to this append to file command in Autohotkey. I will definitely look into that one.
Yeah. There are a few issues with it in Logseq. Because if you append to the wrong file name, in Logseq, it's very liberal about which date you have on your daily notes or daily journal pages. So if you add it to I have one date format, but other people could have another date format.
Yeah.
But if you add any page with the current day or whatever, the current day's date in another format, it will say, oh, you probably want this other format since you added it to your journals folder.
Mm-hmm.
And what happens then is it doesn't merge the two pages. It just switches from the one page to the new format.
Oh,
and then suddenly it's like, what happened? It's my page is empty except for my last added thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm trying to find a workaround for this where it detects which sort of format is in use already and uses that so it appends to the relevant date format file instead of like seemingly overwriting, because I actually logged, why is this overwriting? Because the difference was instead of dashes between the different dates, it was underscore. I was like, I don't understand, it doesn't work. So yeah, I don't want to release it to people yet because they could have the same experience and be very angry at me.
Yeah.
You don't lose any data, it's just Logseq is switching from one date format to another, and then it seems
it splits
like
your system up in two if you're not aware.
Yes.
Wow. Yeah. Oh. But it will not be relevant for me because I just have one inbox file I want to dump things into. So that will always be the same.
Yeah, the name is the inbox file, and then you will be fine. So yeah.
Very cool.
Yes.
Should we move on to the book recommendation? Yes. Since last time, I've been listening to a book from the author Daniel Pink.
Yeah.
And the book is called When, and it's all about timing. And he explores how timing is important in achieving the things that we want, both on a daily basis, like how is your energy level during the day according to your chronotype.
Yeah.
And also he explores the start, the middle points, and the endings of other stuff like your life or a project or some kind of time frame. There are a lot of science that he condensed into some very good advice. Science shows actually that if you have a project with a time frame and you have a bunch of people working on this project, when they reach the midpoint, something starts to happen. And it doesn't matter if it's a short project or a long project. When you reach the midpoint, either you realize that you are way behind and you give up, or if you're a little behind, it will actually be more motivating than being on track. And there's science backing that up also from the sports world, from basketball, where one team was 1 point behind before the halftime, and that kicked them into winning the game. So it's a very, very nice book. And he also, in each chapter, he has a small section called the Time Hacker's Handbook with some small tweaks you can do to improve your own timing in the everyday life.
Yeah.
And there's a bunch of good information there. Very nice book and very recommendable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, I think I have two books because you reminded me of another book which is called 59 Seconds. I don't remember the first name, but it's called Wiseman, and it's all about all the things we know in psychology that works that you can do in less than a minute.
Wow.
And that really work. So one of the things I always remember, I don't necessarily need to go that much down in weight, is that if you want to go down in weight, you should add a mirror on your fridge. And they have tested this with all other interventions. And this is the most effective by far. It's so much more effective than anything else that it's so easy. You can just literally buy a mirror and just on your.
Does your whole body does it have to fit inside, or is it just your face?
I don't know. Actually, I don't remember. I read it like 10 years ago, so at least. Yeah, but it's very funny that such a small detail difference in your life can actually make you switch the behavior. So you just have to look at yourself.
Yeah. Nice.
So yeah, and the other book which I'm currently reading is You Can Change Other People, and I found that a very inspiring title for a book. And there's a very good quote in this book, which I'm paraphrasing because I don't remember it exactly, but it says something like, "People don't mind change; they mind being changed."
Yeah.
So That's a very nice. It's like you just move your perspective a little bit, like a few degrees, and then you can help people change. So I think this is, I think I have a lot to learn here in this book. It's very practical. It's in a very much in the same way as Crucial Conversations, with lots of dialogue examples of what to do and how not to do it and what to do. So, and sometimes it's a little hard to read these kinds of books because you're hearing the same things over and over again, and you always feel, but my conversation will never be like this. But it's of course it's helpful anyway, because it keeps you focused on how to think about problems and how to stop formulating yourself in certain ways. So I found it very useful, although I haven't finished it yet. It seems something I can use
I would
in my everyday life.
Definitely consider that as well, and also put it up against this one, because it is also about how to change behavior. Nice. And for the listeners, which is not on the video, the book is called Influencer. But I will talk about that another day.
Very nice. Yes, I don't have any video recommendations this week, but we can always find something next time. Do you have a quote for reflection? Or maybe you can just think of the one I had.
I have a quote from Eric Mack, which has worked together with David Allen for a lot of years. And I recently heard like a podcast where they talk together, and he has made a formula. So it's not much a quote, but it's called V equals K times M times T, which translates to your value equals your knowledge times your methods times your tools. So it's like an equation with things that are
and it also, that means that a good carpenter could make a very good job even with poor tools. But
but if the tool is bad, the whole value drops.
So it would of course be harder or take longer, for instance. So I like this.
So if you have bad tools, your knowledge and your methods have to compensate in order to create the same amount of value and equally with the other three. So it's like a triangle of it's very tightly.
And since my knowledge or brain is very small, I need to like make the others much bigger.
Because exactly. So with little knowledge and a lot of good methods and good tools, you can actually do a lot of stuff.
So I think that's my motto. So when I just utilize other things, then I can make up for my deficiencies.
Exactly. And also this equation made me reflect on the three things. What is my knowledge? What is my methods? What is my tools? And how can is there something out of sync? How can I improve one of them to improve the value?
And it also makes me remember the quote from Sunke Aren's book, How to Take Smart Notes, where he says that there's no amount of intelligence that can make up for a poor system or so it's
exactly.
He says that you can actually see people who are highly intelligent. They often fail at university because they have such a bad system in place, because until that time they have always, as we say in Norwegian, floated on their intelligence and haven't had to have good systems in place and do the work and so on. So when they come to university, then don't just have to be intelligent. They have to actually have to do the work. Then they often fail. So intelligent people often fail at university, was his claim. It's very interesting. Yes. Should I take us out?
Before that, and before you guys jump all the way into Logseq and use that as your GTD system, next week I will talk about how I use Obsidian to manage my projects and my tasks.
Yes. So, just jump into Logseq straight away. You have 2 weeks until Thorbjørn convinces you of otherwise. Yes. Okay. Yeah, thanks for listening. We would love to hear from you. Give us any feedbacks in the comments if you have any ideas, tips, tricks, books, or any other thing you would recommend us to look into and possibly discuss in a future episode. So until next time, remember, be curious, be attentive and kind. Goodbye.
Bye.